the virus has spread to all but one continent, Antarctica. There are about 35 confirmed cases that we know of across the U.S. 5 of those cases are right here in San Antonio.
A coronavirus is actually a family of viruses.
And they're called coronaviruses because when you look at them under the microscope, they have little spikes coming out of the edges, which looks sort of like a crown or a corona, or the sun's corona.
You've heard of the MERS and SARS viruses. Those are types of coronaviruses. This one, currently spreading in China, hasn't been recognized before.
The current thinking is that it was a virus that was typically in animals, maybe bats, maybe some other animals, and that it jumped to humans. So it has never before been seen in humans.
Health officials believe the animal-to-human transmission likely happened at a market in Wuhan, China, where live animals were being sold. So what are the symptoms? Think flu.
Starting at the mild end, they can be sneezing, coughing, fever, aches, and then as you get down towards the more extreme end, you're feeling like you have pneumonia, difficulty breathing.
The virus spreads through droplets, often someone sneezing or coughing and someone else breathing in those droplets. Similar to the flu, people with a weakened immune system, especially older people, are most at risk. The Washington Post reports that work on a vaccine for the coronavirus is underway. That work being done in Boston, San Diego, and Houston.
People in the United States are in no imminent danger whatsoever. You don't need to walk around wearing a mask. You don't need to be worried about that other person in the bus or on the subway with you. You need to wash your hands. You need to take the kinds of precautions you take with the flu. Don't go to work if you're sick. You need to be aware. Things can change, and they can change quickly.
The Centers for Disease Control announcing that a group of people who were in China and potentially exposed to the coronavirus are arriving here tomorrow. They will be housed at Joint Base San Antonio-Lackland.
One of the big tenets of preventing big outbreaks is figure out who's sick, get them isolated so that they can't spread that disease to other people, figure out everybody they've had contact with and put them under symptom monitoring so that the minute they get sick, they're isolated. We do this for Ebola, we do it for Marburg, we do it for a lot of different infectious diseases. And so the same principles are being applied here. And that's how you keep an outbreak from mushrooming into an epidemic. The medical care of these individuals is part of CDC's mission. It's our job to protect the safety and health of Americans, and then it's also a local mission. So local San Antonio and the state of Texas are all involved in the public health safety of their citizens. So I think it's important to note that all across America, and San Antonio and Texas are no exception, hospitals are preparing for possible coronavirus cases. You could have any traveler returning and possibly have been exposed if they were in China and particularly in the Hubei province. So while we're taking these extreme precautions here, hospitals all over America are taking their own precautions, and local hospitals know what to do in order to protect against coronavirus. These individuals are about to enter a very tough 14-day quarantine period. They don't know what's coming, they don't have the items that they're comfortable with, and it's our job to make sure that they're not only safe, but they're comfortable. A fever of 100.4 or greater is enough to trigger them going to a hospital.
And developing this noon, the CDC confirms one of the people quarantined at Joint Base San Antonio tested positive for the coronavirus.
The risk to the San Antonio public remains low, and I want to stress that the individual has been quarantined since arriving at Lackland Air Force Base from the Wuhan province in China, and the individual remains in isolation in a local hospital. Of the 91 passengers at Lackland, this is the only patient with symptoms at this time.
That patient being treated tonight at Methodist Hospital Texan in Balcones Heights.
I spoke to hospital officials who say they were already prepared weeks ago for a situation just like this.
We've drilled on this, we've prepared for this, and I think we're ready.
The Southwest Texas Regional Advisory Council coordinates with the Center for Disease Control and Prevention to create a unified approach for all hospitals in our area to deal with infectious diseases, including the coronavirus.
We've had many conference calls with both hospitals and EMS, and had the public health authorities and others trying to help us make sure we understand what to be prepared for.
Once a case of the coronavirus was suspected at Lackland Air Force Base, the plan went into action. It included isolating the patient and transporting them to Methodist Texan Hospital in an ambulance equipped with protective coverings and a highly trained staff wearing protective gear. And once at the hospital, the protocol continued.
Then to isolate that patient and put them in negative pressure capabilities so that they don't infect anyone else.
And despite the growing concern around the virus, health officials say there is a good reason why the public at large should not panic.
Hospitals in general deal with these kind of conditions every single day, right? Whether it's flu A, TB, or any other of those kind of conditions.
Now calling only those American guests from Emerald Deck.
You want to see what your next step is?
Yes, we do.
Right. Well, your next step is you get to go forward, hand the passport to this gentleman in the yellow. He will hand it to the State Department folks on either side. They will keep your passport, then they'll put you on a bus. The bus will take you to the airplane. The airplane takes you to the United States.
Six confirmed cases of coronavirus in San Antonio. Local healthcare officials and the CDC saying 5 of those cases are among the evacuees from the Diamond Princess cruise ship passengers quarantined currently at Joint Base San Antonio Lackland.
As the number of COVID-19 cases in Texas sits at a half a dozen, response team officials revealing all 6 of the patients are being treated at the Texas Center for Infectious Disease in separate rooms at the facility.
It is exactly the way that our healthcare system should be working so that we are not putting the burden on our hospital system.
The primary mission of the Texas Center for Infectious Disease is to treat patients diagnosed with tuberculosis, a highly contagious illness that affects the lungs. Patients with Hansen's disease, also known as leprosy, according to the CDC, are treated at the center's 4 outpatient clinics located throughout the state. But in recent days, the TCID has made headlines as the place where multiple evacuees brought to Joint Base San Antonio Lackland for quarantine are now being taken after showing symptoms or testing positive for the COVID-19 coronavirus. The facility is located on Southeast Military Drive between South Presa and I-37 near Brooks City Base. According to information provided online by the Texas Department of State Health Services, TCID provides patient care, scientific investigation, and therapeutic and educational services. The facility has been treating patients with tuberculosis since 1953. It has 75 beds, which online info describes as having integrated air quality and security systems. 22 rooms have been set aside to keep coronavirus evacuees in a wing closed off from the rest of the building. Patients being treated for TB usually stay at the center anywhere from 3 months to more than 2 years. TCID treated 109 patients over the last fiscal year. 15% of those TB cases were considered drug-resistant. The state says the center is equipped to accept patients from outside of Texas if needed.